Hello and welcome to the virtual tales of Binary Arcadia. Today we've got a few more details of Death Stranding to share with you. Roll the titles. So, we've just got a few more bits that we'd like to talk about, stuff that we've been mulling over for the last few weeks, stuff that's maybe come out of some stuff that Kojima has shared on his Instagram page that we've sort of mulled over, and also some other bits maybe we've taken from the trailer on second and third looks. So hopefully we can join Tabz at the flip chart for some excellent artistry.
Hello, Barcadians. So, as Rich says, hopefully we're not flogging a dead horse on this one. We think we've got a few more meaningful bits to point out, and as you probably gathered, we can't stop talking about Death Stranding. It can't come soon enough. So, you can see this crude landscape picture that I've knocked up for us, and essentially there's three elements we really wanted to touch upon, which we're going to go through systematically. So if I'm going to throw over first of all, Rich, I'm just looking and pointing for the viewers at the wheel that we've drawn in above Sam's head. What does that mean? What do we think that represents?
So, and we'll put them on screen now, but Kojima's been posting just continuously pictures of Sam resting. And we're not 100% certain to the reason for this, but we think it has to do with some sort of stamina that Sam has. And we've depicted it here as a Breath of the Wild type stamina. And in essence, what we're saying is, based on the amount of kit he's carrying and the landscape he's traversing, I guess, we're saying that he has this stamina wheel, and when the stamina wheel depletes, he has to rest, maybe he has to eat, to basically replenish his stamina so he can carry on.
Yeah, that's it. I think, as you pointed out, Rich, that at one point it seems that you can actually take a whiz as Sam, and then combine with things we've seen, and shout out to RobinGaming, one of the videos he's put out. At one point you also see him ripping a toenail off. We've seen boots, all sorts of different types of equipment. There's even, like, when he's in these resting poses on the pictures, there's almost like a button prompt, isn't there, on the screen?
Yes.
Like in Japanese.
Yeah.
But it all seems to point to Death Stranding being much more of a survival simulation than we ever perhaps thought. So you're literally going to have these quite complex systems and equipment that you're going to have to manage, which we think is going to be very interesting. I think it's both a good and bad thing. It could make the game very difficult, feel very trying. So, let alone contact with enemies and with the BTs, just a day in the life of Sam is going to feel very tough, I think, isn't it, Rich?
My guess is, as you start out, and I get the impression that you're in a scenario where you choose a loadout, and the more kit you take, the quicker your stamina will deplete. But as we've seen, there are these almost game-breaking bits of tech, such as the motorbike, the exoskeletons we've seen, and maybe more
end game stuff, we think.
Yeah,
maybe.
Exactly. So I think possibly the start of the game will feel a bit of a trudge, because you're really having to micromanage these systems of Sam getting ill, maybe with different ailments, be it broken toes or whatever, or ingrowing toenails that we've seen. I've seen, I think, a video where he's drinking something while he's going along, which suggests that there's maybe potions or some sort of dynamic that you can do to give you something.
Could be timefall resistance, but could equally be just hydration, I suppose, couldn't it?
But maybe the stamina wheel is linked to the timefall. Maybe out in the world there is this atmospheric timefall, and your exposure to it basically depletes your stamina wheel.
I like it, a bit like radiation in, like, say, a Fallout game.
Yeah,
that.
Exactly.
Yeah, very interesting. I think I kind of compare it only because I've recently played Hollow Knight on the Nintendo Switch, which is a 2D open world, or they refer to them as Metroidvanias. So essentially you kind of have a hub world, a safe zone if you like, and from there you're constantly pushing on this vast open world, and as you gain more abilities, more skills, more experience of the world and master it, you develop your the kind of expanse of the world. You find out and discover more of the map, and eventually it's this huge colossal open world almost. And I think it looks like Death Stranding is going to be similar. It feels like it's going to be almost mission based, doesn't it, Rich? Like the Phantom Pain.
Yeah, definitely.
So you're going to have missions where you choose your own loadouts prior to each.
Yes. Yeah, I think so.
And then it's going to be a balancing act between obviously taking the loadout that's going to do the job, but at the same time not taking as little as possible to make sure the survival element is a lot easier, because Sam's easier to handle.
I get the impression there'll be a bit of strategy involved in that. Like in an ideal world, you might want to take all of this kit with you, but actually that gives you a rough ride to where you've got to get to. But it might give you an easier ride when you get to where you've got to get to. So I do think there'll be a bit strategic at play there. Yeah.
It's definitely going to be interesting. And, like we've said, there's a good and bad side to it. People who really enjoy the games where you can pick up and play, dive straight into, very accessible, well, maybe this isn't going to be for them. Maybe this is more of a, as we've said, a simulation game. And I hate to bring it up, Rich, but Red Dead Redemption 2 had that quite, granular wireframe of a simulation game over the top of it, which at times felt a little bit trying, a little bit frustrating. But, we'll hold out hope. This is all speculation, so who knows?
And then let's move on to the next point.
Indeed. So the second element we wanted to point out is all about, again, my crude attempt to draw. These are supposed to be radar domes. This is like this big giant chiral sensor we've seen in one of the clips from the trailer, and we've got some masts over here, some kind of almost radio or signal masts. Rich, over to you. Do you want to kick us off what they mean?
So what we're thinking here is, and it's been spoken about on a number of trailers, that Sam's job is to connect the world. Now, given this is set in the future, I don't think we're talking about physically connecting the world. We're not talking about laying cables now. I know we did have that theory originally, but I think now we've moved away from that a little bit, and we're now thinking that he's creating like a mobile network, like a communications array that spans the world, that connects everywhere together, so maybe they can pinpoint the exact BTs, maybe they can pinpoint the source of the BTs. So I think what he's doing is, with the kit he's taking out to either repair masts where they've stopped functioning and he needs to do something to them, add something, rewire them or whatever, or where we see him with loads of kit, he is actually setting new masts, which is why he has to take more kit with him.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I'd agree with most of that, to be honest. My take would be perhaps there is an element of connectivity there with the different states of the UCA, is that right? Called the UCA?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
United Cities of America. So there is an element of connecting everybody on a comms link, so everybody can speak and communicate with each other, because obviously parts of the world are made totally inaccessible via BT interaction. But also maybe there is an element there of a sort of either protection or detection system for the timefall, and all these kind of comms equipment are a way of combating that to some extent. So yeah, I definitely think that appears to be, Sam's missions probably for the most part revolve around, as you say, Rich, either erecting or repairing, either an existing network or even creating extensions to the network.
And to link that back with the previous point, I think this is where you'll find that your loadouts, you'll have this is the kit that you need for this mission, and then anything you add to that is like a helper, if you know what I mean. So you could just take that alone, but you might struggle to get where you need to get to. Yeah,
and also maybe, and I wouldn't be surprised at all, especially what we saw in Phantom Pain, that as you go on missions, well, there's opportunities, which perhaps we've already seen arise with, are we calling them the ceramic group, Rich?
Yes, I believe we are, yes.
Those orange chaps we saw in the recent trailer that hassle Sam a bit. Perhaps there's opportunities to pick up new equipment, more equipment. So therefore, you've got to be careful about how much you take, because obviously you won't have much room to hoard or take back to base any more things you find out on the fly.
And I think it speaks volumes that that fraction, they were most interested in what Sam had on his back rather than Sam himself. So they were more interested in stealing his cargo than they were like killing him, basically.
And again, that plays into what you said earlier, Rich, about that, you know, Timefall being so hostile, and you've got limited kind of access and exposure to the world, because people would be very very covetous of resources, wouldn't they? If the world was so hostile they could barely go out in it, they'd be wanting to hoard and, you know, keep hold of all those amenities, resources as much as possible. It's like as we said, like a nuclear fallout world that you're struggling to survive in.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So I think that does that one to death, Rich. Is that all right for you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the final element from this flip chart we just wanted to point out was right up here. And it's, again, a very crude, almost looks like a cookie, but it's supposed to be the moon. So, Rich, do you want to give us a little bit of a play into that?
So, I think there's either some misdirection here or some misinformation. But the Luden's outfit, which is the sort of spacesuit like mascot, you would say, for Kojima Productions, which we've seen and is an incredible looking suit. Kojima has basically said that's not in the game, but I think that almost certainly that is in the game, especially since we've seen the carbon fibre mask on, which character was it, Tabz?
Die Hardman, was it? Die Hardman?
That's it, yes. And it actually says Luden's, I think on the top of the mask. And I think,
and again, shout out to RobinGaming on that, because I have recently watched that video after you tipped me off, Rich, and it looks like identical, doesn't it, to what Luden's is wearing underneath his outer suit.
Absolutely. So we're now thinking that the end game of Death Stranding is going to take place on the moon, and that's linked back to that line which Cliff put, even the moon. That's what he says in one of in the latest trailer. He specifically says to his baby, "We can go anywhere, even the moon."
Absolutely, and I think at first we thought it was metaphorical, just a suggestion to say you're finally going to get to see everything, you know, and the kitchen sink, if you like. But I think it's perhaps more literal, that perhaps there is whatever Cliff did in the origin of the story to perhaps cause this cataclysm, which is what our previous theory pretty much was. Maybe there's something on the moon, that he's some sort of an array, some sort of equipment that is causing all this, and therefore we're going to have to go there as a final destination. So
I wonder whether this communications array that we've suggested, what that allows you to do is pinpoint the source of this chirality, and from that you find that it's on the moon, and that causes you to go to the moon, use the Luden's outfit.
Seems to make sense. It would be a very climactic way to finish a game as well, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
So let's hope so. So before we flip this chart over, Rich, to talk about something else, we'll just touch upon a couple of themes and Kojima's Instagram. So we'll flash up some pictures now, overlay these just to show you some of the things he's been posting. We've already talked about them, Sam mostly being exhausted on his missions. And we feel that there's very much an autobiographical element there from Kojima, feeding into the story of Death Stranding, which is interesting. We'll put a link to an article, I forget a specific article now, but it was to do with Kojima identifying with this kind of story figure called a cicada. I don't know, I hope that's how you pronounce it. But essentially it's an insect that works in an office, and he's got this, it's a story from some creator somewhere, and I think he sent him like a book to read, and he just really loved it and identified with this character. And it's about this insect in this office who works tirelessly, and he doesn't get much thanks for it, he doesn't feel appreciated, kind of feels or gets abused by the people he works with. And it's really interesting that Kojima just feels like he's taken that on board, and it's you see a lot of that in what Sam's doing. It's a very solitary experience. It's very probably thankless at times, because he's going through this daily grind where he's having to just see to his missions, connecting the world as we've explained. And I think it's going to be an interesting experience in that way, just to see how that feels. Is that going to be fun? But maybe there's some sort of metaphorical statement that Kojima's making here. So yeah, I just wanted to point that out from an artistic point of view. So Rich, do you want me to go to flip chart number 2?
Take it away.
Let's do it. I haven't pre-ripped this, so let me just tease it off. Feel free to hum some music to yourself, Rich, as I do this. Pass the time. Right, we are revealed. So the second flip chart graphic is all titled at the top there, Contour Map. We've got Sam at the bottom, all kind of geared up, ready to go. This path here is kind of his potential route if we say he's heading out on a mission. So Rich, do you want to kind of tell us a bit about what we're seeing here and how we think the game is going to play in terms of gameplay?
So we've already seen in the latest trailer that Sam has these this equipment that he helps to traverse the land. We've seen ladders and we've seen the anchor rope. Now we're thinking that in order to make the world more accessible moving forward, when you place these down in the world, they remain there. So it speeds your way through the game so that they're there forevermore. So if you have to cross a path again, well, I don't need to take kit for that then. I don't need to take 7 ladders. I don't need to take 3 anchor ropes because I've already got them out in the world. So we think that, and as you can see depicted in this slide, that the ladders and the ropes and that, we've left them in the world as if that's what we've done. We've left them there ready for when we need to traverse that landscape again.
Yeah, exactly. And I just feel if some sort of these routes you're creating in this world weren't left in some permanent sense, it's just going to feel very difficult, isn't it? To suddenly re-emerge in the world on a new mission and suddenly you've got to recreate all this work you've done previously.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I just find it hard to believe that you'd have to do it from scratch every single time. But
and I think it almost feels to me like this is almost going to be like a puzzle element of the game. So like working out how you get across the landscape with the kit you've got is going to be like the logic puzzle of this game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we've seen numbers, haven't we, above the ladders and ropes, which implies that you can get multiples of them. But yeah, maybe there's going to be limitations there, isn't there?
And when you've solved that path through, because you've got the right ladders in the right places, you've got the right ropes in the right places, then you can move on. Yeah. And we've even got your little reference to your asynchronous gameplay theory there, Rich, just to show, some routes are going to be obstructed by these BTs. And again, you would hope that these sections, perhaps, once you work them out asynchronously with other players, those footprints are left for you to perhaps track and trace. So once you've solved it, then that's going to be a straight through route for you when you return on another mission. But yeah, it's really hard to say, isn't it? Sorry, go on, Rich. I was just going to say, while we're talking asynchronous gameplay, if you haven't watched it, here's a little plug for our almost 2-hour video about Death Stranding, which we posted a few weeks ago. Some really cool thoughts and ideas in that. So if you haven't seen that and you're really interested in Death Stranding, definitely go and take a look at that, because there's some interesting things there.
If we do say so ourselves. And it is in fact one of our most successful videos, which is not what we expected at all, Rich. We thought it was going to be one of our most unsuccessful videos, I think. Yeah,
just because of the length of it, but yes. So if you're into Death Stranding and you haven't watched it, I think it's a good watch.
So yeah, just to finish off then, so yeah, this basically illustrates the fact that we think, again, it's going to be very much a survival sim. This world is going to feel very, very hostile just to navigate and negotiate and traverse, let alone combat situations. So fingers crossed. As we know, I had a bittersweet relationship with Red Dead, Rich, but if it is...
Just to interject there, we've also spoke a little bit about San Andreas in the last few days, and how San Andreas, GTA that is, you used to have to do all these things like work out to build muscle, eat to maintain, or you could actually get overweight, and there was loads of like little micro things that you almost needed to manage, and it almost became a bit much. So we're sort of hoping, and exactly the same as you were about to say on Red Dead. It was the same scenario. I am hoping that there's almost a half, like an amount of this that you can get on board with, but I think it might take away from the game if he's done like that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with what you're saying, mate. It's just there's a trade-off there, isn't there? Because it becomes very inaccessible to, a particular crowd of gamers who just don't want to bother with all that stuff. They just want to jump in and they want quite a straightforward experience. And whilst when things are challenging like this and you have to manage stuff, well, there's always a good payoff, isn't there? Because when stuff feels really difficult and trying, but you still manage to overcome it, well, it's all the more satisfying because of that fact.
Absolutely.
But, like we say, balance and act. So let's just hope Kojima's put enough, difficulty options in there for different types of gamers out there. Because we want this to be really successful.
Absolutely.
We love Kojima.
We do.
So yeah, I think
that's about it, isn't it, mate? That's all the new things we've got to tell you about it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll continue to release stuff as we think of them, and please do share your comments with us because it just feeds into that whole dialogue, and Rich and I continue to bounce off ideas and inspire each other to come up with new things. So
yeah, almost on a daily for this. Probably one of our most excited games at the moment. We'll talk about it most days, so it's really cool. And Kojima's just decided he's going to feed that every day by dropping a Death Stranding picture on Instagram. So
that we scrutinise for a good 10 to 15 minutes of our lives.
Absolutely.
So yeah. So thank you everybody for watching. If you did like the video, please give us a like. It really helps to grow the channel. And if you didn't, a dislike, because feedback is always welcome. And I think that's about it, Rich. Another one for the archives.
Stamped and completed.